All right, well, good evening, everybody. Thank you all for joining us tonight. This is GeoDC's 120 whatever meetup. The theme tonight is open data, open communities, and open standards in roughly that order. Or actually, I think Nadine would disagree and say it goes the other way. Open standards come first, right? So at any rate, we have two fantastic presenters tonight. So thank you all for joining us, and thank you to our two presenters who are volunteering their time and are going to tell us more about the work that they're doing. So I'll go in the order of Nadine and then Maggie, and I will allow them to introduce themselves so as not to steal any thunder. If you have any questions, type them in the chat, and we'll have a few minutes in between each presentation or after each presentation for audio questions too. So feel free to speak up as well. So Nadine and Maggie, are you both ready? Okay, so Nadine first and then Maggie. So Nadine, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Can I share my slides as well?
Please do.
And hi, everybody. It's Nadine, CEO of OGC, and I'll tell you a little bit more about me. And actually, if I had to change the order, Tom, I would start with the communities first. It's people first, right? Communities, and then everything else flows. So let me see how to share my screen. And you stop me anytime. Am I sharing the right screen?
Yeah.
Yes, 6. All right. So I'm going to talk to you about the exciting times of geospatial, or what we're saying these days of location, because geospatial is not just the GIS geeks anymore. And that's why I love this is called GeoDC and not just GIS-DC. I'm going to tell you a little bit about me if you tell me about you. So if you promise, we can then together, I don't know, count our blessings, I think, for being geo people these days, because these are amazing days for geo. And I want to tell you how OGC is changing, how standards are changing, and how they look like in these changing times, the standards. So if that's the deal, I'll go on. Let me tell you a little bit about me. So I moved to DC in 2001, actually, yes, after finishing my PhD at MIT. And I did, my dissertation was on web services for geospatial information. And I actually came to DC because my brother at the time got accepted to Gallaudet University. He was deaf and he didn't know a single word of English. So I just wanted to be close to him, and that's how my adventure started. I found myself very quickly at NASA Goddard Space Flight Center in Greenbelt, Maryland, supporting the Earth Science Applications Division at the time. And how do you expose all the NASA data to any scientist, any application domain, anybody in the world? Guess what? Standards. And then I started my own business. I did some consulting, and I found myself very, very quickly at OGC. And that was what, like 10 years ago. I found myself at the Open Geospatial Consortium. And I was their executive director for the innovation program, and I'll tell you a little bit more about it. But to me, this is the fun part of OGC.
Stay.
We can hear you. You're not muted. Just whoever is talking. So the fun part of standards is the experimentation with other people before things become a standard. I then left OGC, started a small business in aviation, as I was telling the breakout group earlier. I started a business in aviation information exchange so that I can get away from geospatial. Turns out it's all geospatial anyway, because airport maps and weather forecasting and flight plans and delays, it's all geospatial. So I'm back. I was off to Northrop Grumman in the McLean, Virginia office and the civil solutions unit. And I had the amazing job of being the chief innovation architect across the whole civil business, right? So how does innovation cross divisions rather than being done one project and one department at a time? It's really fascinating. And then as of 2 years ago, I'm back at OGC. So if I could make a circle, it's like started OGC, ended at OGC, and I'm very lucky, I think, to be at OGC in the days where we're actively changing and growing as a geospatial community, emphasis on community again. So if I have to tell you a little bit about OGC, I'm very proud to be part of this global community of geospatial experts. And our mission is to try to make location information more findable, accessible, interoperable, reusable, fair. Everybody's using the FAIR principles these days. And these days, I feel like finally everybody's appreciating location. So they really understand what we do in the geospatial field. And how do we do this at OGC? We do this via 3 things. So Tom mentioned standards, and I'll tell you more about those. Innovation projects, because you cannot get to a standard if you don't experiment first, if you don't agree on something first. And community building. So this community is growing, beyond, again, I say it beyond the bubble, because everybody now is realizing, location, whether it's your Uber or the food delivery or the drones or everything. So we have OGC as a consortium. It's a membership organization globally, and we have about 500 plus academic, government, industry organizations. So I hope you can recognize some of the members. So AWS or HERE or Planet or TomTom or Microsoft or Intel or Apple, and a lot of small businesses, ESA, NASA, NGA, FAA. So I have 2 boys, ages 9 and 13. And when they look at this chart, so this is a sample of our members, only one company makes me look cool in front of my boys. Can you guess which one it is? It's not NASA or anything like that, or Maxar. It's Epic Games. So Epic Games, so these are the people behind Fortnite, if you're into video games. So the gaming community is now part of the geospatial community. And I'm finally a hero in front of my kids after all these years. So hold on to that thought, because I think it's very exciting. If you want to tell me about you, so Tom, if we can do this very quick exercise. So if people can go to this, and I'll put it in the chat if you want. So menti.com and use this code 93961. So let me put it in the chat for you. And so you tell me in sort of 3 words very quickly. So are you a developer, a student, an executive? Are you government, industry, academia? What's the name of your organization? Anything that comes to mind, so we get an idea who you really are. Does that sound good? So let me put it in the chat for you. I'll stop the share. And if I can find the chat again, there we go. So you go to menti.com and you enter the code. There you go. So let me.
Did you just chat at the one person? Sometimes
oh yeah. It's not a special code. Here we go. Yes. Can you see it now?
Yep, I see it. I'm gonna
Super.
go there right now.
Yeah, I see it.
All right, so take just like a 1 little minute, and then I'll share my screen again and show you what I'm seeing here. And if I share the same screen, yeah, can you see my screen? So they start popping in. I hope you can see that too. And so in my breakout, I love that we had, you know, people who are learning about GIS. They were students. They had government experience. I love hobbyists. Nice. I heard also in our breakout data scientist, DC resident, OpenStreetMap, cartographers, mappers, government, open, journalists. How cool. Community builder, librarian. I think this is just amazing. Organizer.
I think I saw algorithm magician as well there.
I love this so much. Yeah, who put that? Cool, thank you. And I can share this with you later, Tom. So let me go back to my presentation. I appreciate this, you guys, a lot, because it's
That's
good
awesome.
to know.
I might have to steal that for future GeoDCs.
Oh yeah, anytime. I'm experimenting with it. So yes, please. So thank you, guys. This is cool. I'll have one more question for you. So honestly, when you look at this, it's just like so many buckets in one bucket. It's not even a bucket. It's just amazing. It's the best way I can express it. So how lucky we are to be, you know, quote unquote geo people, whatever that means, right? And I'll tell you just a little bit. I swear we're lucky because space is exploding. So I'm happy that Eddie's here from Maxar. Terabytes from space, and all these startups, you know, from the launch to collecting the data, to the sensors, to what they do with the data, to the analytics, to the visualization. It's just like unbelievable. UAVs, you know, the drones, the self-driving cars, you name it, exploding. It's all location, by the way. Internet of Things, my phone, your phone, the traffic cameras, the flood and the earthquake detectors. And I don't know, I just got this number from the internet, Gartner. So, you know, trustworthy, I think 5.8 billion Internet of Things that you want to know where they are, because where they are is important, and when they are somewhere. Pandemics, and I know people are sick of COVID, but it's still with us. And I swear, it feels like there are all these dashboards out there. There's even actually a rating of the best and the worst of the coronavirus dashboards by the MIT Tech Review. But issue number one, when you talk to these guys who are building, or girls who are building the dashboards, the issue number one is the problem connecting to the data sources. And I also heard it in our breakout, by the way. It's just like, it's a 10 minutes that shows a lot of issues, a lot of opportunities. So connecting to all the data in the back end is not easy, because the interface changes and it's different from data source to data source. The interfaces are ad hoc. The interoperability, the connection is lacking. The integration is very difficult, even today, 2021, for combining health data with what, socioeconomic data or any type of data. And that's why I think we're here. And it's not just COVID, by the way, it's really any threat at a global scale. We're hearing increasingly, you know, especially here in DC now, about climate change. And nobody, no entity, no one has all the data or all the models or all the tools or all the processing or all the use cases. And nobody, right? That's why I keep, you know, hitting on community. We have to work together. This is about just one Earth that we all live in, and it's about what combines these data sets is location, and then the impact that we can make based on our knowledge as a community of experts. And one last, I think, fascinating example we're hearing a lot about is smart cities, digital twins, urban digital twins, a lot of talk, a lot of action around smart cities. The concept of we, and again, you, me, us, right? We can connect all this information, health infrastructure, retail, transportation, energy, underground, you name it, all of this, so that I call it, we gamify cities. So, you know, you have the planners, the urban planners, and they can play, just like here, the picture. Oh, what if I add more roads? What if I change this road? What if I have more trees, less trees, underground connections, so on and so on. It's just like fascinating. And it's all because we geospatial people can combine data to actually solve these problems. So all of this requires connecting data. That's what OGC does. What I'm curious, so if you humor me for one more exercise, I'm very curious, being the CEO of OGC now for 2 years, really going through a major transformation of geospatial and of standards. What comes to mind, to your mind, when you hear OGC? Again, pick 3 words. It could be OGC standards that you use, or I've never heard of it. I mean, I don't know who's saying what, so you really can be honest. And let's see what comes out of it. So one more exercise, if you can humor me, I'll put it again in the chat. And let's see. Here we go. And I'll share my screen. Be nice. Right. They're starting to come. So this is what comes to your mind when you hear OGC. Geospatial is good, standards, geo, public, community, interoperability, location, geo, autonomous, compliance, adaptation, stack, data science, data, I like that, data formats. Are you also doing this with your heads? Useful, XML rules, open data source, sharing geospatial information, data science, again, new to me. Cool. I think you get the gist of it. Even if it's new to you, it keeps on coming, which is great. I like this. Thank you, guys. So I will share my PowerPoint again. Can I do this without changing? Let me see. Let me see if it's smart enough. Can you see the PowerPoint? Yes?
Yes.
All right. Hey, I don't have to do anything special. Cool. So this is good. I think you got the gist of it. So let me, with my few minutes remaining, everything that I've talked about, and I think what I detected here, the collaboration, the community, the data, the interoperability requires the glue. And the glue is the standards. And I'm not gonna lecture you on standards, because this is what in people's heads is like, ooh, standards are this very formal thing. No, it's not for me. Actually, you'll see probably you're using them without even knowing, which is great, which is exactly where we want them to be. So whether you're using sensor data from or sensor here at the bottom, like sensor APIs or sensor standards, a lot of models, ISO, I'm sure you've heard of KML or GeoTIFF. So these are examples of OGC standards, community standards. But there's also water ML and time series ML and infrastructure and indoor ML and city GML. So it's like, how do you encode in a way so that you can share this information and not have any doubts about what the other party is thinking when they say road or when they say underground. I hope you've heard, but if you've used Esri software or Hexagon software or any of any open source GeoServer or any really open source, you've probably used the web mapping server, the WMS, WFS, the feature service. And again, you can read up on these, but the idea is, how do I get what I need when I need it over the web very easily using an API? So that in this case, the web services. So I'm not going to lecture you on this, but I want to share with you what excites me these days, beyond, what you see here on the screen, which is sort of like the world of standards. It's how the world is actually changing, and so the standards are changing. So the latest and greatest in 1 minute, indoor mapping standards. So this is what Apple has brought to the geospatial world, a community standard on indoor mapping. How do you map warehouses, airports, the inside of malls, you name it? Apple wants that standard to be the way you map everything indoors. Cloud computing. So we're working with the NASA, the Maxar, the ESA, whether it's federated cloud processing or data-centric security, sensor things. I go back to sensor things, right? So there's an API to pull information from all these sensors that are deployed based on their location. One API, so you don't have to have one that's different for every sensor that's out there, say in the case of a disaster. Speaking of disasters, GeoPackage. I hope you've heard of GeoPackage, but if not, how do you get the maps, right? The maps, the tiles to your mobile device, to your phone, for example, or tablet, whether you're a soldier in the field or you're a rescue responder, right? Like first responder out there. How do you get the data synced up in disconnected and connected environment when you don't have internet? That's the GeoPackage. It's also a standard. You want something more, that's my kids' example, the 3D streaming, because we're now at a stage where we can do 3D streaming. We actually have now not just one, but actually we have a couple 3D streaming standards that are, again, community brought. This is, I don't know if you've heard of a Consortium. That's why they're so big on the news, most recently because they've been partnering with all the gaming companies, right? So putting things together for the gaming world, 3D environments. And last but not least, another cool thing is bundling all this up to enable, to empower, to actually make it real, to do, right? To model smart cities so that everybody can use them, which is, again, amazing. Last but not least, if you leave with one thing, is how us geo people are now becoming more the location people. And in this case, we're developing as a community the OGC APIs. So this is the successor to the WMS, WFS, but it's mostly we're modernizing how we access and share location information by anybody, especially non-geospatial geeks, like the Walmarts of the world that want some satellite imagery to figure out how packed their parking lot is, so that they can figure out supply and demand within their store, just as a, I don't know, crazy example. But so APIs for the non-geospatial geeks, because guess what? Not just geospatial geeks are now using geo. So maps, styles, routes, you name it. We have to continue doing a lot of R&D, right? Because things are changing so quickly. So on the innovation front, I'm not going to go into the detail, but we have the innovation program where we do this R&D. So I hope none of it comes as a surprise here. Machine learning, I think anybody anywhere has heard of machine learning, but so how do we do this with geospatial information and how do we share it? Another thing maybe I bring to your attention here, the JSON part, the OGC features and geometries. Who hasn't heard of GeoJSON? But if you have, or if you've used it, so this is an attempt to essentially expand on GeoJSON to include the CRSs, to include the ability. This requirement came from the FAA, for example, for the drone program at FAA, because they don't need all these different geometries. So actually they wanted a profile of JSON, but with CRSs. So that's the ability. We're sort of experimenting together about the this, features, geometries, whatever you want to call it, JSON. Literally, we don't know what to call it yet. So last but not least, application-wise, and I love even my breakout, agriculture, yes, sensors, imagery, environmental data, that's from NOAA, the National Weather Service. Think marine, how do you bring data from water and land? Think disasters. I think we can talk about disasters so much. Health, again, COVID. And I mentioned, disasters, the response, the mitigation, and the preparedness. And we do it with standards. That's how you can bring one data set to life, by combining it with another data set. And if you want to combine it with so many in real time, without even knowing what the data set is, you usually need a standard to do that. So it's fascinating to me. I hope it's, at least a little bit fascinating to you. Long story short, I generally think us now, this group, we are shaping this future. We're so lucky because Geo is now making such an impact in the world in every domain. I mean, even again, I go back to my breakout, 10 amazing minutes when we mentioned from biology to agriculture to aviation to health. It's unbelievable. It's all location. But I have to end with, it's not actually about the technology and the innovation alone. It's not just about the standards. It's about the community. It's about the partnership. It's about the integration. And it's about getting this innovation to something that's operational. And last but not least, you're very lucky to be here because we have so much work to do. None of what I said is actually a done deal. That's why, we shared so many, events in the chat before, because there's actually a lot happening and there's a lot of work. So it's a great opportunity to be in this field, especially for the graduate folks amongst you. So that's a very quick, I'm very happy to be here, to meet you. My email is here. Happy to answer any questions. And if it appeals to you, any of what I've talked about so quickly, I would encourage you to subscribe to our mailing list, because we do send out these cool applications and these opportunities to engage in events or research and development, and meet other people in that community. So thank you, Tom, again so much, and I hope to meet you guys in person and without having a fever. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Nadine. It was a great presentation. I know I'm always excited when I get my OGC updates whenever a new standard's announced, so I have to read into it and see what it's all about. Does anybody have a question about OGC for Nadine? Well, I have one while folks are thinking for a minute or so. How mechanically does a standard come into existence, an OGC standard?
Oh, with a lot of pain and tears, right? It's consensus, right? So you have to have first a group of people that say, hey, we're sort of doing the same thing. We need to standardize so that 1 + 1 is not 2. It's like way, way more, right? And so that group of people gets together, and we call it from the bottom up. So these days, I'll take the APIs as an example. We're starting with the developer. Before, people used to sit down and write a standard, then experiment with it. Right now, it's like, no, the developers have something that works. Let's have them agree. Let's have it bubble up, and let's have it easy for consumption by others. That process is usually the tears and the pain. So that's one way. But the other way is, because there's so much happening, I take the Apple example. Or KML was another example. So the indoor mapping standard, they've developed it. They've developed a format, and they came to OGC and said, can we make this a standard? And it's the same process. You come in and you ask the community, is this a standard? Does it look good to you? Can you interact with it? What would you change in it? And through that iteration, you get there. Hope that helps. It's a process, and that's why I mentioned community is important, because people agree, people develop standards, and then people use them. You can have the best standard in the world. If nobody uses it, it's not a standard.
So I have a question. What's the most active companies or institutions in OGC, or does it just depend year to year?
Oh, that's a good question. It doesn't depend. I mean, it depends year to year, but I think it depends more on the domains, because there are so many domains. So you'll see the group that's, say, doing the sensor APIs. You know, you have a few organizations that are very active, and the group that is doing Earth observation is definitely a bigger group these days. There's the group that's doing weather or aviation, and maybe there's a little overlap, but in most cases, they're their own little communities. So I can't say, right? It's within a community. You have the champions, right? They're genuinely the champions.
Daniel, did you have a question?
Sure. Hopefully it's, I'm not putting you in the hot seat too much. So there's some people in the US government who think we can move beyond standards. It's been reported in the news. I can send you some links. And I think that is just crazy. I think you need standards. So I guess, how would you persuade people who think we can just evolve past standards and just have machines just, I don't know, use machine learning to figure it all out?
Figure it out.
I've heard this before, and I think one thing, if you read any AI, ML, they tell you what we guys think is the current state of affairs is not. And we're actually a long way from this pure, the machines can do everything and AI will take over and all of this. We're really not there. To me, there's I go back to climate change, maybe for the government especially, right? You don't have all the data. You're going to need other people's data. If you want to spend all your money to connect with the data, and then these guys will change the next day, right? And then you have to do it all over again because, hey, you didn't agree on anything. Good luck to you. But nobody wants that, right? And at the same time, I think the standards is more, somebody asked me the other day, what if I had a magic wand and I said, here you are, all the standards that you need. You don't have to develop everything. Here they are. And what would you do then? And my answer here would be the same, which is the standard is the result of the pain and tears and consensus, right? And the community. We have to go through this together to agree to then use something. So even if they don't want to agree on a standard, they have to agree that eventually there has to be more than one entity. You can't just give all your data to Google or to Microsoft or to anybody. Nothing against any of these guys, right? And that's the idea. You don't want to be dependent on anybody. I'm trying to decipher the chat, sorry, the Fawaz's text. So I'm like, oh, sorry.
All right, well, I think I see there's one more question, then we'll move on to Maggie. It was from Hayden from Scotland. Does the OGC work with other standards bodies and organizations? Is there a chance to share and work together?
Oh my God, yes, because we can't do it all, right? One, and two, because now geospatial is in everything, we can't be experts in everything. We cannot be the experts in aviation and the experts in defense. It just doesn't work. So we're finding OGC has a long history of partnerships, and we're finding that we're expanding those partnerships. So from the W3C and so your mainstream sort of IT to the domains like USGIF for defense or ESET for earth science. And these days, again, they're coming very quickly. The Digital Twin Consortium and the OASC, which is also another digital twin sort of thing. So there's, yes. Yes.
All right, well, thank you very much, Nadine. I'm glad you were able to join us tonight. And also introduce me, not just to more about OGC, but also to this Menti tool. I am definitely going to use this for GeoDC and for work and for personal moving forward. That's an
Cool.
awesome thing.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.